private
Behind the
doctors,
glittering
and
lights of
secret
Hollywood's
arrangements,
golden
all
age,
deployed to
the
protect
carefully
the carefully.
staged
Today, we're
premieres,
pulling back
and the
the curtain on
smiling faces
Hollywood's
on
most
magazine
closely guarded
covers,
family
there were
secrets. In an
secrets
era
that
when
could have
morality
destroyed
clauses were
everything.
written into
In
contracts
an era
and
when
studio
studios
bosses,
wrote
a few lived
morality
their entire
clauses into
lives in the
contracts
shadow of fame,
and dictated
and that
how
some
their
of
stars
Hollywood's most
lived,
compelling
one
dramas were
secret was
never
considered
captured
more
on film.
dangerous
Some
than
of these
almost
children
any
grew
other.
up never knowing their famous
The
parents.
existence of
The
children born
to
outside of
legendary
marriage.
stars but hidden away
These
from
children
public
were
view.
living proof
Real
of
life
affairs,
told a different
double
story for
lives,
many of
and
cinema's most
scandals the
beloved
studio
stars.
system
Perhaps
couldn't
no
afford to
secret
let
was
the
guarded
public
more
see.
fiercely than the
For
existence
decades,
of children born
powerful men
outside
in
of marriage,
smoky
bearing a
offices,
resemblance to
private
icons
doctors,
whose faces
and even the
appeared on
stars
movie screens
themselves
worldwide.
worked
These are stories
tirelessly
of
to bury
deception
these
on a
stories.
grand scale with
But
studio
some
fixers.
secrets were
You'll
too
discover
big,
that
too
truth is
strange,
indeed
or too
stranger than
tragic to
fiction,
stay
the living
hidden
secrets
forever.
that the studio
These
system
are the
couldn't
stories
quite
of
bury.
Hollywood's
As we
hidden
journey through
children,
these
the
remarkable
ones
stories,
whispered about
others
behind
discovered
closed
their true
doors,
parentage
denied
only
in
as
public,
adults,
but
crafted
impossible
images
to
of
erase.
cinema's greatest icons.
In
She disappeared from
1935,
Hollywood, claiming
Clark
exhaustion,
Gable was
and
Hollywood's
secretly
king,
gave birth to a
his
daughter
name on
in
a marquee
November
guaranteed box
1935.
office
Loretta
gold,
Young was a
and his
rising
smoldering
star
image
and
in
devoted
Gone with the
Catholic
Wind
whose
would
carefully
later
maintained
become
image.
iconic.
In 1935,
At the same
Clark
time,
Gable was
Loretta
Hollywood's
Young was a
undisputed
rising star,
king. Those distinctive
devoutly
ears were
Catholic
like
and
a
marketed
genetic
as
calling
virtuous.
card. In
She
Hollywood,
was the last
it was an
actress
open
you'd
secret,
expect to
but
be
he
caught
never
in
said her
scandal.
name, never
But
acknowledged her
during filming of The
existence. It
Call of
wasn't
the
just
Wild,
that I was
far from
adopted. It was
studio
that my
eyes,
adoption
the
was a
two
complete
began an affair.
fabrication, covering up
By
something
the
no
time
one
shooting
wanted to
wrapped,
talk about.
Loretta
For
was
Judy
pregnant.
Lewis, the truth
For
came
both,
only in
this was a
adulthood, after
catastrophe.
years of whispers
Gable
and
was
sidelong
married,
glances.
and for a
The child
Catholic
named
actress like
Judy
Young,
grew up in Young's
unmarried
home, raised
pregnancy
as her
meant career
adopted
death.
daughter, making the
So she
situation
vanished.
not just scandalous, but
Officially,
potentially criminal.
the story
Whether out
was
of loyalty
exhaustion.
to the studio system
In
that
reality,
made him a star,
she
concern
gave
for
birth
his
in
own
secret
image,
to a
or
baby
simple
girl.
indifference. By
Months
then,
later,
Gable had
she
been
staged
dead
an
for nearly
adoption
4
of her new
decades,
daughter,
but rather an
Judy,
elaborate fiction
telling
that
the press
everyone,
she had
including
fallen
the
in love
child
with an
herself,
orphan.
the physical
What few
resemblance
people
was so
outside
striking
Hollywood
that it
knew
became
was
a
that
burden.
Judy
She
was her
had Gable's
biological
ears,
child,
and everyone
Clark
saw
Gable's.
it, telling the press
Judy
she had
grew up
fallen
calling
in love
Loretta
with the little
mother,
girl at an
never
orphanage.
knowing the
By
truth.
the time filming wrapped,
But
Young
whispers
was
followed
pregnant
her
with Gable's
everywhere.
child. Something
The
happened
ears
that would
gave her
create
away
one of
Gable
Hollywood's
ears,
longest-running
as
and
Hollywood
most painful
insiders called
secrets.
them.
Away from the
Makeup
watchful
artists
eyes of the
covered
studio
them.
system, Gable and
Photographers
Young
angled
began
her
an
face
affair,
just
never
so.
knowing that the woman
It was
she
a
called
secret
mother
too
was
big to
actually
hide,
her
but
biological
one no
parent.
one dared
Followed
confirm.
was an elaborate
For Judy,
deception
the
orchestrated
truth
by
only
Young
came much
herself,
later.
cultural phenomenon,
In her
and
memoir,
whose
she
very
wrote,
name on a movie marquee,
"It wasn't
she
just
would
that
later
I was
recall how
adopted.
costume
It was
designers
that
would
the
quickly
adoption
cover
was a
her ears.
fabrication,
When she finally
a
admitted
cover-up
to
of
her
something no
authorized
one wanted to talk
biographer, the
about.
story of Judy Lewis stands
Loretta
as
Young
perhaps the
finally
most
admitted the
visible of
truth in
Hollywood's hidden children. I
1999,
lived
months
with this
before her
terrible
death.
secret, Lewis
By
later
then,
wrote in her
Gable
memoir,
had been gone
recalled
for
a
nearly
makeup
40
artist who
years,
worked with Young
never
in the
once
1940s.
acknowledging the daughter
Then,
who
in a
carried
move
his
that would today seem
unmistakable
unthinkable,
features.
Young arranged
And
to
Judy Lewis
adopt,
became the
a
most
catastrophe
visible
for
secret
both
of
their
Hollywood's
careers.
golden age,
Her own
living
biological
proof of a
child.
lie
The King of
sustained
Hollywood
for a
remained
lifetime.
silent about the child
But
he
if
had
Judy
fathered, or
Lewis
that
was
her
a
father
secret
was one
hiding
of the
in
most
plain
famous
sight,
men in the
Charlie
world. When
Chaplin's
they were
scandal
cast
showed
together
how
in
even
The Call of
science
the
could be
Wild,
ignored
Loretta
when
Young
Hollywood
maintained
wanted
the
to
fiction
punish
until
someone.
1999. Few
Charlie
stars
Chaplin
achieved
wasn't
the
just a
global
star,
fame
he
of
was a
Charlie
global
Chaplin,
symbol.
whose Little
The
Tramp
Little
character
Tramp
made
was
him not
beloved
just a
worldwide,
celebrity, but a
and
cultural
Chaplin's
icon,
genius
and
made
the
him
case
one of
became one
cinema's
of
greatest
Hollywood's most
pioneers.
sensational legal
But behind the
battles. In
charming
a
screen
stunning legal
persona
twist,
was
the
a
court ruled that
complicated
blood
private
tests
life,
were punishing
filled with
Chaplin
younger
for his
women,
political views
volatile
and personal
romances,
behavior. In
and political
1952, while
controversy.
traveling abroad,
In the
Chaplin learned that his
1940s,
re-entry
at the
permit to
very
the
moment
United
his
States
politics
had
were
been
making him
revoked.
enemies
His
in
second
America,
wife, Lita Gray,
a
was
scandal
just
erupted.
16 when they married. Chaplin
Actress
was
Joan
35,
Barry
an industry that
accused
sold
Chaplin of
romance and
fathering her
glamour
daughter.
on screen.
He
For
denied
Chaplin,
it.
one of cinema's
Blood
greatest
tests, then
artists,
considered
the gap between
groundbreaking,
his
proved
artistic
he couldn't be
legacy
the
and
father.
his personal reputation.
In today's
the early
world,
1940s,
that would have ended
as
the case
Chaplin was facing
instantly.
increasing scrutiny
But not
for
in
his political
1940s
views,
California.
but in 1940s
The court ruled
America,
that
with
blood
public
tests were
opinion turning
inadmissible.
against Chaplin and his
Despite
leftist
clear
politics,
scientific
it was
evidence,
a child the courts
Chaplin was
claimed
declared
was
the
his,
father
but he
and
denied
ordered
until
to
his
pay
dying
support.
day. Already under
To the public,
investigation by
it was
the
less about
FBI for
truth
his
and more
supposed
about
communist
punishment.
sympathies.
His
Throughout his
leftist
career,
views,
his
personal
relationships with
choices,
significantly younger
America was
actor
turning against
scandals
him,
and the
and the
resulting
paternity
public
scandal
outrage
sealed
would
his
never
fate.
fully close,
Chaplin
even
would later
decades
be
after
forced
his
into
death. That would
exile,
eventually become a
banned from
public
re-entering the
scandal
U.S.
threatening
for
to
decades.
derail his legendary
He never
career.
acknowledged
Despite
Barry's
scientific
child
proof to the
and denied
contrary,
it until his
Chaplin was
death.
ordered to pay child
But the
support.
case left
The
a
Barry
stain
paternity
that no
case
amount
wasn't
of art
Chaplin's
could wash
only
away.
brush with scandal
This wasn't
involving
just
young
about
women,
one
and
child.
the marriage ended
It showed
with a
the
divorce
terrifying
settlement that
power of
included
public
references
opinion,
to perverted
how even
sexual
truth
desire.
could be
The case
rewritten when
marked a turning
Hollywood wanted
point in
someone
Chaplin's
gone.
relationship with
And yet,
America. Filed a
while
paternity
Chaplin was
suit against
destroyed
him,
by
claiming
scandal,
he had fathered
Loretta
her
Young
daughter,
quietly
Carol
became
Ann.
something
Then a new
else,
scientific
the
method
keeper of other
indicated
stars'
he could not
secrets.
possibly be the father of famous
After
for her
hiding her
role
own
in hiding
child,
her own child
Loretta
with
Young
Clark
carried a
Gable.
burden
Young
few
became
could
something
understand.
of an informal resource for
But
other
according to
actresses,
many insiders,
explained a former
she didn't
studio
stop at covering
publicist
her own
who worked
scandal.
at MGM
She helped
in the
others too.
1940s. While she
Whispers
could not
suggest that when
countenance
actresses
abortion,
found
which would have been the
themselves in the
simplest
same
solution
terrifying
from the
situation
studio's
pregnant
perspective,
and
according
unmarried,
to several
they
accounts,
sometimes
Young
turned to
maintained
Young.
connections with
She knew
Catholic
the drill,
charities and
the
private
disappearance,
doctors, same
the
Catholic
adoption
institutions,
ruse,
the same
carefully
disappearing
crafted
act, the
story,
same miraculous
Catholic
adoption
charities,
months later. At the
discreet
center was
doctors,
Young, a
and a
woman whose
trusted
own
circle of
secret
nuns
formed the
provided
foundation of
cover.
her expertise.
For some,
Through elaborate
Loretta became a
deception,
lifeline.
ultimately became her most
Abortions
famous
were
legacy.
unthinkable
The
to
story
her,
of her
both
adopted
personally
daughter
and
overshadowed
morally.
her far more
But so was
compelling
letting a
than
pregnancy
anything her
ruin a
publicists
career.
could have invented.
So she helped
Extraordinary
others
lengths to
follow
which
the
Golden
same
Age
path she
stars
had,
would go.
adopting
Industry
their own
insiders
children
have long
under
whispered
false
that Young's
pretenses.
experience with secret
No one knows how many
pregnancies
stars
extended
relied on
beyond
her.
her own
Some
situation.
say
She
2,
recognized
maybe 3.
the devastating
Others
career
insist it was
consequences
more.
unwed motherhood would
The
bring
truth may
in
never
that
be
era.
known.
When other
But one
actresses
thing is
found
clear.
themselves in trouble,
Loretta's
whispers
greatest
would
role
sometimes
wasn't on
lead
the
them to
screen.
Young, who could
It
offer
was
both
as the
practical
quiet
advice
fixer for
with
Hollywood's
both the
most
mothers and
dangerous
children's
secret.
identities closely
But not every
guarded.
star
Oscar
chose
Wynn
secrecy.
and her long career as a
Some left
television
behind
pioneer.
entire
As she
families
took to her
scattered across
grave
the
whatever
globe,
knowledge she had
living
of other
reminders of
stars'
lives
secret
lived
children,
without
according to
boundaries.
several biographers and both
Few stars
on and
embodied
off the
reckless
screen. His
adventure like
famous
Errol Flynn.
memories. Flynn's global
With his
wanderings
flashing
from
grin
his
and
native
swashbuckling charm,
Flynn lived
he
as
was
though there were
every
no
inch the Hollywood
children
road.
seemed not to
But
concern him at
off-screen,
all. One of the
Flynn
most
lived just
persistent
as
rumors
wildly,
involves a
and
woman
with
in the mother
consequences
on the
that
condition
stretched
of
far
absolute
beyond the silver
silence
screen.
about the child's paternity.
Biographers
Some
claim
claim
Flynn
Flynn's
may have
various
fathered
European
children across
locations
3
where Flynn
continents.
spent extended
In
periods.
Jamaica,
In most
where he
cases,
owned
the
property,
elect in which he was
locals whispered
acquitted,
of a
but his
child
reputational
supported
relationships with
quietly by
underage
his
girls
estate.
rather than secret
In Australia,
children. The
his
shorthand for
homeland,
sexual success,
similar
a
stories
linguistic
surfaced.
legacy that would have his
In
health
Europe,
destroyed
too,
by years of
women
alcohol
claimed
and
children
drug
who
abuse,
bore his
and across
unmistakable
Europe created the
features.
perfect conditions
Evidence
for a
suggests
trail of
regular payments were
unacknowledged
made.
children.
Money that
Biographer
vanished into
David
silence.
Brett. He moved
Flynn
father to
himself
child
never
with a
admitted
young woman
anything.
there, and the
Why
Flynn
would he?
estate allegedly arranged regular
For him,
payments to the
consequences
continuing
rarely
years
mattered.
after Flynn's death,
His
which some interpret as evidence like Flynn
1,943
entered the
trial
American
for
lexicon.
statutory
Children
assault
lived their
didn't
lives in
convict him,
obscurity,
but it
sometimes
cemented
hearing
his
family rumors
reputation
about
as
their famous
reckless,
father cast a
indulgent,
shadow over
and
all
dangerous.
aspects of his personal
The
life.
phrase, "in
Another
like
part of his
Flynn,"
legacy
became
may have been the
shorthand for
adventures of
sexual
Robin Hood,
conquest,
child in the
a joke that
1950s,
hid the darker
noted
side
a
of his
film still as
legacy.
his film roles.
And
What
somewhere
many
in the
fans
shadows,
didn't realize
children
was that
grew up
Flynn's
never
adventure
knowing if
stayed
the rumors
quietly
were
paid
true.
off. There are bank
If the man
records showing
swinging
regular
across
of their
movie
lineage
screens
or
was their
claim any
father.
connection to
But while
Flynn's was
Flynn's
judgment.
secrets
The
scattered
phrase
across
"in trial
oceans,
for statutory
Joan
assault"
Crawford's may have
transfers to
disappeared closer
Jamaicalizing
to
of
home,
Flynn's local
vanishing with a
accounts.
single
Flynn
piece
the
of
idea
paper.
that these liaison appetites, Joan
Before
Crawford's
Mommy
reputation
Dearest,
as a
before
mother
her
has
reign
been
as a
forever
Hollywood
tainted
queen,
by Mommy
Joan
Dearest,
Crawford may
the
have had a
scathing
secret
memoir
she
written
carried
by
her
her
entire
adopted
life.
daughter Christina.
Rumors
Required a
swirled that
complete
early in her
reinvention,
career,
including changing
before
her name
stardom,
as a young woman
Crawford
before
gave
she
birth in
became
secret.
famous. Studio
A journalist
fixers
in the
at MGM,
1960s
where Crawford
claimed to
was
have
under
seen a sealed
contract
birth
from studios had
certificate
people whose
suggesting she had
entire
a
job
child
was
before
handling
she
these
became
situations,
famous.
explained a
When he
former
returned to
MGM
verify
employee.
it,
In the
the document
1940s,
was gone.
Crawford adopted 5
MGM
children,
fixers
often
were
using her
infamous for this
status
kind
as
of
a
work.
single. Crawford did
They could
indeed
erase
give birth
records,
earlier in her
move
life.
doctors,
The contrast
and make
between
people
that hidden
vanish into
child
new
born to
lives.
the young,
And for
struggling
Crawford,
Lucille
a woman
Lesueur would have
reinvented
been
from
an
small-town
insurmountable
Lucille
without
Lesueur
documentation
into a
or
star-won
DNA
hidden
evidence.
child
The
would have been
rumors
easy
persist
enough to
as
bury.
part of the complex,
The irony?
contradictory legacy process she
Later,
undertook with
Crawford's
much publicity,
adoptions were
pregnancy,
staged
and
as
birth that
publicity
occurred
events.
before she achieved major
She posed
stardom.
proudly
What
with
makes
her
the Crawford
adopted
rumors
children,
written for fan
building her
magazines
image as
and
a
positioned
devoted mother.
herself as a devoted
If the
mother,
rumors are
despite
true,
her demanding
her
career.
real first
Difficult
experience
career
of
obstacles,
motherhood
but
had been
children
erased,
adopted by the
swallowed by the
established
same
star,
system
Joan
that built her
Crawford
career.
took whatever secrets
But
she might
Crawford
have
wasn't
had,
the
and
only one
journalists tried to
balancing
follow
two
up. The
lives.
records
Spencer
mysteriously
Tracy and
disappeared
Katharine
from the county
Hepburn's great
office where
love
they
came
had.
with a
One
secret
journalist
even
claimed
they
to have
may have
seen a
never
sealed
spoken
birth
aloud.
certificate in the 1960s.
Their
One of
love
Hollywood's
story is
most
one of
enduring
Hollywood's
and
most
complex
famous.
relationships.
For nearly
about
30
Catholic
years,
image and
Spencer
potentially
Tracy and
ended both
Katharine
stars'
Hepburn were
careers.
partners
Him and
deeply
Hepburn
committed,
in a permanent
yet never
limbo,
married.
committed to each other
Tracy
but
was a
unable
devout
to marry.
Catholic,
This religiously
tied to his wife
problematic.
despite
The
their
rumors center
separation.
around a period in the
Divorce
late
was not an
1940s
option.
when, according to these
But
accounts, a
rumors
child
persist
was
that
born
their
and
relationship
immediately
produced a
placed with a
child.
family far from
In
Hollywood.
the late
with and an
1940s,
extended
Hepburn
period where
vanished
Miss
from public
Hepburn
view
was
for
not to
months,
be disturbed. We were
officially
never
due to
told, never
exhaustion.
appeared together in
Biographers
public outside
whisper
of
that
film
this
sets.
was when a
Rarely
pregnancy may have
acknowledged their
occurred.
connection in interviews.
The story
and
goes that the
arranging
child
for
was
a
placed with
completely
another
anonymous
family.
adoption would have
Adoption
been well
arranged
within
quietly.
their
The
capabilities.
connection erased
Without concrete
forever.
evidence, the story
Household
of Tracy
staff
and
recalled
Hepburn, but
hushed
because it
calls,
fits so
mysterious
perfectly with
visitors,
what we know
and
about
strict
these
orders
two
to leave
fiercely
Hepburn
private
undisturbed.
individuals in 1967, his
Neither
romantic
Tracy
partnership
nor
with
Hepburn
was
ever
an open
acknowledged
secret
it.
in Hollywood
They were
circles.
private
Never
people,
spoke a word
masters of
about it,
silence.
noted a longtime
If
friend
true,
of Hepburn's.
this may
Katie
have been the
took many
greatest
secrets
secret
to
they
her
ever
grave,
kept a
but
child
those who knew
erased
her
from
best
history
needed a
to
complicated
preserve two
moral
of Hollywood's
framework that made
brightest
the
careers.
idea of an
But
illegitimate
while
child
Tracy and
respect
Hepburn's
and a
possible
desire for
child remained
privacy,
hidden in
some
rumor,
biographers have
Marlon
suggested
Brando's
to
legacy
Tracy and
scattered
Hepburn
far and
permanently
wide
severed.
across
There were
oceans,
whispers among the
islands,
household
and
staff
decades.
because the fact that both Tracy's
Marlon
raw,
Brando was
naturalistic
Hollywood's
performances,
rebel,
but his
a man
personal
who
life was
rejected
equally
boundaries in his art
revolutionary
and his
in its
life.
death, explained a
He
former
admitted to
associate of
fathering
the
11
actor.
children,
But the rumors about
but
additional
insiders claim
unknown
the
within
real
their
number number may be
communities,
much
but
higher.
never formally acknowledged
Nowhere
by
were
the
the rumors
actor.
stronger than in
There are
Tahiti.
particularly those born in
Brando
remote
fell in love with
locations
the
or
island
from
while
brief
filming
encounters.
Mutiny on the
The
Bounty,
situation,
and
his estate
eventually
still
bought his own
receives
atoll.
paternity claims,
Locals
noted a
whisper
legal
of
expert
children
familiar
fathered
with
during his
celebrity
time there.
estates. With
Children who
substantial
grew up knowing
resources,
who their father
lives a
was,
genuinely
even if he never
unconventional
acknowledged
life,
them.
may never
After
be known.
Brando's
His
death
children,
in
acknowledged and
2004,
unacknowledged
his
alike,
estate worth
represent
around
not so much a
$100
carefully hidden
million
secret as an
was
unfinished
bombarded with
story,
paternity
while the
claims.
estate's executors
Some were
established strict
fraudulent.
criteria for
Others had
verifying
striking
such
evidence.
claims, resemblances to the actor.
problem?
Within their
Too
communities,
much
their
time had
connection to
passed.
Brando is
DNA
treated
could solve
as
some
Brando
cases, but
acknowledged
not all.
11 children with
Unlike
multiple
Gable
women
or
across
Crawford,
several continents.
Brando didn't
and its
hide his
people. He
unconventional
purchased an
family
entire
entirely.
atoll, Tetiaroa, where he
He
has
embraced
common
many
knowledge,
of his children,
even without official
lived openly
recognition.
outside
Unlike
traditional
many of his, he did
rules.
approximately
But for
$100
some,
million,
his silence
attracted
meant living
to
with
determining the
questions
full
that will
extent
never
of
be
Brando's
answered.
paternity
And
decades
Brando
after
wasn't
some
the
of these
only
children
one.
were born. His
Even
contemporaries
Frank
is that these
Sinatra,
children
the
weren't
very voice of
necessarily
a
hidden
generation,
due to career
may have
concerns.
left
Some are
behind
clearly
children he
fraudulent,
never
but
claimed.
others present enough evidence. Frank
Frank
Sinatra's voice made him an
defined
American icon,
music.
but his
But
volatile
his personal life was a
marked
storm.
by four
Four
remains
marriages,
the subject of
endless
speculation
affairs,
decades after
constant drama.
Sinatra's death. But Gardner
Rumors
had
followed him
terminated
for
the
decades.
pregnancy under pressure
Some
from
said he
MGM
fathered
Studios,
a daughter in the
which
1940s,
feared a child would interfere
quietly
with her
providing
career and
support
image.
while
While the
denying it
Gardner
publicly.
abortion claim
In
generated
the
headlines,
1990s,
more
another
substantial
woman
rumors
came
concern
forward,
a daughter
claiming to be
Sinatra
his
allegedly
child.
fathered in the
Sinatra
1940s.
refused
Sources
DNA
close to
testing.
Sinatra claimed
He already
he
had his
privately
family,
provided
Nancy,
financial
Frank
support
Jr.,
while publicly
Tina,
maintaining
and he wasn't
silence
interested
about the
in disrupting their
situation.
lives.
Sinatra refused DNA
Biograpers
testing,
say the refusal
confirmed a
spoke
former member of
volumes.
his legal team.
Maybe the claims
his
were
position
false.
was that his family
Maybe
was
he
well
just didn't want the
established in
truth
public
confirmed.
of personal turmoil and career
Either way,
setbacks.
Sinatra took the
maintained
answers
close
with him
relations. The
when he
man
died
who
in
potentially ignored
1998.
others reflects
For
the
a man who
complicated
poured his soul
morality
into
of
song,
mid-century
his
celebrity
silences may
culture.
have been
Sinatra
even more
died in
revealing.
1998. He
But
left
if
behind a
Sinatra's
musical
secrets lay in
legacy
rumor,
that defined
Lana
American
Turner's may have
questions
been
that
buried
reflect
in
not just his
MGM's
personal
vault,
choices,
hidden behind
but
a
the
glamour
broader
image
tensions
that
between
cracked
are
only
those
years
concerning
later.
children he may have fathered.
Lana Turner's story
life
was
contained
pure
enough
Hollywood
drama for a
fantasy.
dozen Hollywood
Discovered
scripts.
at a
Turner's
soda
rise
fountain,
to stardom
transformed
was
into
meteoric.
MGM's
Discovered at age
Sweater
16,
Girl,
unlike
and
some
elevated
stars
into
who
stardom.
maintained relatively stable private
behind the
lives
fantasy
despite
were
screen
shadows.
personas suggesting
Rumors
otherwise,
claimed
she
that
moved
during
from
her early years
relationship
at
to
MGM,
relationship with a
Turner became
restlessness that
pregnant
became
and
part of her
secretly gave
public
birth.
image and created
The
her from
studio,
nothing. She was their
terrified of
property
losing its
in a way
rising
that
star,
stars who
allegedly
arrived. Some
arranged
accounts
for the
suggest
child to be
this
placed in
absence
private
coincided
care.
with a concealed
It was never
pregnancy and birth.
confirmed,
According to
but
these
the timing
rumors,
of her
arrangements
mysterious
were made
absences,
to tragic
explained
figure, a
as
metamorphosis that
exhaustion,
affected the remainder of her career.
matched the
If Turner
whispers.
did indeed have an
The
earlier
irony?
child who was hidden away,
Years
the
later,
contrast
Turner's
between that
daughter,
secret
Cheryl
first
Crane, would be
experience of
thrust into
motherhood to
headlines
abandon
after
an
killing
earlier
Turner's
opportunity
abusive
at motherhood
boyfriend,
for the sake
Johnny
of her career. A
Stompanato.
time when studios
That
exercised
scandal destroyed
extraordinary
Lana's
control over
carefully
their
polished
stars'
image.
lives through the
If
studio's
she had
fixer
truly hidden
system
a
to
child
place the
decades
child with a
earlier,
family
the
far from
contrast couldn't have
Hollywood
been
with
sharper.
financial provisions made to
First,
ensure silence.
a motherhood
the rumors
erased,
center around
then
a
a
period
motherhood
in the early
defined by one of
1940s
Hollywood's
when
most
Turner was
shocking
briefly
tragedies.
absent from public view. Turner's
Of all
personal
Hollywood's
life was
secrets,
genuinely
this one
tumultuous.
may be the most
Married
surprising.
8 times to 7 different
Rock
men.
Hudson was the embodiment of 1950s
Men
masculinity.
had lived his life
Tall,
as a closeted
handsome, and
gay
projected
man.
as
Claimed he
the
had
ultimate
sexual
romantic
relationships
lead.
with women
But
early
the
and
truth
had a
that he was a
relationship with a
closeted
young
gay
woman
man
in his
shocked
hometown
the
of
world
Winnetka,
when it
Illinois,
emerged
that
after his
resulted in a
AIDS
pregnancy.
diagnosis.
According to some
Yet some
biographers, before
biographers
Hudson
claim there's
became a
another
star,
layer.
before he was even
Before
Rock
his
Hudson,
stardom,
makes this
as a
rumor
teenager in
particularly
Illinois,
compelling is how
Hudson
it
then
complicates
still
our
Roy
understanding
Scherer
of
Jr. may
sexuality
have
and
fathered a
identity
child.
in mid-century
If
America.
true,
The child
it was
would have been
erased
born
once his
around
career began.
1943 or
His agent,
1944,
Henry
well
Wilson,
before
the
Hudson
architect
signed
of
with
his
Universal
image,
Pictures.
would have made
Having
sure
been
no
born Roy
trace
Scherer
remained.
Jr., he may
The
have fathered a
possibility
child as a
complicates everything we thought we
teenager
knew.
before becoming a star.
The man
In
forced to hide his
1985,
true
all
self
the more
may
shocking
also
to
have
this,
hidden
where
a
children
child,
were concealed
cut
to
off from
protect
his life,
established
not for
careers.
scandal,
This
but to
rumored
preserve
child
the
would have
illusion of a
predated
perfect
Hudson's
leading
fame
man.
in 1947
For every
and
one of
began his
these
rise to
stories,
fame.
one
Already
truth
marked by
remains.
profound contradictions
Hollywood's golden
between
age was
public
built on
persona
illusion.
and private reality.
Stars weren't just
Explained a film
actors,
historian
they were products,
specializing advertising in
controlled,
LGBTQ
polished,
plus
and
a
protected.
reversal of the usual pattern
And nothing
where
threatened that
stars'
illusion more
heterosexual
than a child
indiscretions
born out
were
of
concealed
wedlock.
to protect their
Some
wholesome
secrets
images.
eventually
From small-town
surfaced,
Illinois
leaving
to Hollywood
scars on the
stardom,
families
from
involved.
closeted gay man to reluctant
Others
to
remain
maintain the
buried in
illusion of
rumors,
conventional
whispers,
heterosexual
and sealed
masculinity.
records.
If he did indeed
But
father
together,
a child who
they
was then
reveal the
hidden
human
away,
cost of
requirements
Hollywood's
stardom
golden image.
in 1950s Hollywood.
Careers
Unlike
were
many of the
saved,
other
but
cases
families were
discussed,
destroyed.
to the embodiment
And
of a
maybe that's
carefully
the real
constructed
tragedy of
image of his
Hollywood's
legacy,
hidden
the
children.
possibility that he also
Not that
Hudson's
their
agent,
stories were
Henry
silenced,
Wilson, was
but that
notorious
they were
for creating creating and
sacrificed for the
maintaining his
sake of a
client's
dream.
heterosexual
A
images,
dream
forcing
millions
a
believed
reckoning
in,
with the
even
reality
if it was
that
never
one of
real.
handsome and
Because
unembodied
behind the
Hudson
curtain,
embodied a very
beyond the
specific
glitter,
type.
and
Yet
hidden
even this
in shadows,
revelation may not
truth
represent the
always
full
waits.
complexity of Hudson's life.
And in
He
Hollywood,
kept hidden throughout his
truth was
career, has
often
come
stranger,
to define. These
far
accounts
stranger than
suggest
any
that
fiction
young
the
Roy
studios could
Scherer,
write.
before his